I died at 31 in a car that had been deliberately tampered with. The brakes failed on a mountain road, and in the seconds before impact, I understood with perfect clarity that my husband Marcus and his assistant Elena had finally decided I was more valuable dead than alive. They'd been having an affair for 3 years. I'd known for 2.5 of those years but stayed silent, believing that love and patience would eventually bring Marcus back to me. I'd worked myself to exhaustion building his company, signed over my inheritance to cover his business debts, and played the perfect wife while he and Elena laughed at me behind my back. My name is Victoria Hayes, and I spent 8 years of marriage being the invisible architect of my husband's success, while his assistant took credit for my work and his affection. Every business strategy that made Marcus Hayes Enterprises profitable came from me. Every major client relationship I'd personally cultivated. Every financial crisis I'd solved with my own money and connections. But Marcus introduced Elena as his invaluable right hand, while I was just his wife who doesn't understand business. He gave her promotions, bonuses, public recognition. Everything I'd earned through actual work while she smiled and played the devoted assistant who was secretly stealing my husband and my achievements. The final insult? When I died, Marcus and Elena didn't even wait a month before getting married. At my funeral, I heard Elena whisper to Marcus, "Finally. Now we don't have to pretend anymore." When I opened my eyes again, I wasn't in heaven or a morgue. I was 23, standing at the altar on my wedding day, looking at Marcus Hayes as he smiled at me with practiced charm and said, "I do." This time, I knew exactly what that smile would cost. But I also smiled and said, "I do." Because this time I had a plan. The reception was exactly as I remembered, lavish, expensive, funded entirely by my family's money while Marcus's business barely broke even. My father gave a toast about how proud he was that his daughter had found such an ambitious young man. My mother looked at me with such hope, believing I'd found happiness. Marcus's best man made a joke about how lucky Marcus was to have married up. Everyone laughed. Marcus squeezed my hand and whispered, "Don't worry, I'll make you proud." In my previous timeline, I'd believed him. I'd poured everything into making his business successful, thinking I was building our future together. This time I knew the truth. Marcus had married me for my family's money and connections. Elena was already working as his assistant, already sleeping with him, already planning to eventually replace me once they'd extracted everything of value. But if they thought they'd get the same docile, devoted Victoria this time, they were about to be very disappointed. The first difference came during our honeymoon. In my previous timeline, Marcus had cut it short after 3 days, claiming a business emergency. I'd been understanding, supportive, telling him work came first. This time, when Marcus's phone rang on day 3 and I saw Elena's name, I answered it myself. "Hello." Silence, then Elena's voice, carefully professional. "Mrs. Hayes?" I was trying to reach Marcus about an urgent contract issue. "Marcus is unavailable. He's on his honeymoon. Whatever it is can wait until we return." "But this contract can wait 2 weeks. Or you can handle it yourself. You are his assistant, aren't you?" I hung up before she could respond and turned off Marcus's phone. "Victoria, that was important." Marcus started. "Our honeymoon is important. The business survived before we got married. It can survive 2 weeks without you." Marcus looked annoyed but couldn't really argue. After all, what kind of husband abandons his bride on their honeymoon for work? For the next 11 days, I made sure Marcus's attention stayed entirely on me. I planned elaborate outings, insisted on romantic dinners, kept his schedule so full he had no time to secretly contact Elena. I also used the time to subtly probe what I already knew about his business. Marcus loved to talk about his company, loved to explain business strategy to me as if I were a child who needed simple concepts. "You see, Victoria, the key to growth is identifying market gaps and positioning yourself as the solution," he explained one evening over dinner. "That makes sense. Have you identified any specific gaps?" "Several. But executing on them requires capital, and the bank won't increase my credit line without additional collateral." Here it was. The same conversation we'd had in my previous timeline. The one that had led to me signing over my inheritance as collateral for his business loans. "Why don't you bring in investors instead?" I suggested. Marcus frowned. Investors mean giving up equity and control. I'd rather keep the company entirely mine. Ours, I corrected gently. We're married now. What's yours is mine and vice versa. Something flickered across Marcus's face, annoyance quickly hidden. Of course ours. I just meant that I built this company from nothing, and I want to maintain the vision without outside interference. But if you need capital to grow, there are options besides putting up collateral. You could pursue strategic partnerships, seek venture capital, even consider a small business loan with better terms than what you're currently getting. You don't understand the complexity of business finance. I understand that risking everything on one bet isn't smart strategy. Diversifying funding sources reduces risk. Marcus's expression went cold for just a moment before the charm returned. You're right, of course. I'll think about it. But I knew he wouldn't. Marcus wanted my money specifically because it came with no strings attached, no one to answer to, no one to question his decisions. Investors would ask questions. Banks would require documentation. My inheritance was just there. Available. Easy. In my previous timeline, I'd offered it eagerly, desperate to prove I was a valuable partner. This time, I'd offer nothing until I was ready. When we returned from the honeymoon, Elena was waiting at Marcus's office. She'd decorated it with a welcome back banner and had prepared a detailed briefing on everything that had happened while he was gone. Victoria. She smiled warmly, coming around the desk to hug me. Welcome back. How was the honeymoon? Wonderful, I said, studying her carefully. Elena was beautiful in a calculated way. Perfectly styled blonde hair. Designer clothes that walked the line between professional and seductive. A smile that never quite reached her eyes. I'm so glad. Marcus, we should go over these contracts right away. There are some urgent decisions needed. Actually, I interrupted. Marcus and I have plans for dinner. The contracts can wait until tomorrow. Elena's smile tightened. Of course. I just thought since they're time sensitive. Tomorrow, I repeated firmly. After Elena left, Marcus turned to me with barely concealed irritation. Victoria, you can't just dismiss Elena like that. She's my assistant. She manages my schedule. I'm your wife. I manage our personal schedule. Elena can manage your business schedule during business hours. What's gotten into you? You've never been like this before. Like what? Wanting to have dinner with my husband? Expecting that our marriage comes before work sometimes. Marcus didn't have a good answer for that, so he just grumbled about me not understanding the demands of running a business, and agreed to dinner. Over the next month, I established a pattern that completely disrupted Marcus and Elena's previous dynamic. I insisted on having lunch with Marcus at least twice a week. I showed up at his office unannounced. I planned weekend trips. I invited his business associates to dinner at our home, where I played the charming hostess, and made sure everyone knew I was deeply interested in Marcus's business. Elena hated every moment of it. I could see her frustration building, see her trying to maintain her professional mask while seething underneath. In our previous timeline, I'd rarely come to Marcus's office. I'd given them space to conduct their affair freely. This time, I was omnipresent. Not clingy or suspicious, just present. The devoted newlywed wife who wanted to be involved in her husband's life. It drove them both crazy. 2 months into the marriage, Marcus came home late smelling of Elena's perfume. In my previous timeline, this had been the beginning of a pattern I'd ignored for years. This time, I was waiting up for him. You're home late. Just working on some contracts with Elena. Lost track of time. At the office? Where else would we be? I don't know. That's why I'm asking. Marcus's expression hardened. Are you accusing me of something? I'm asking where you were. That's what wives do when their husbands come home late smelling of perfume. It's just Elena's perfume. We were working in close quarters. At 8 p.m.? When the office closed at 6. Victoria, I don't appreciate the interrogation. And I don't appreciate being lied to. I kept my voice calm. Marcus, we've been married 2 months. If you're going to work late with Elena, at least have the decency to tell me the truth about it instead of pretending it's normal business hours. Nothing is happening between Elena and me. I didn't say anything was. But the late hours, the perfume, the defensive attitude, they don't look good. If you want me to trust you, you need to be honest about where you are and who you're with. Marcus stared at me, clearly caught off guard by my directness. In our previous timeline, I'd been so desperate to believe in our marriage that I'd accepted every excuse, every late night, every lie. This time, I was making it clear that I saw through him, without quite accusing him. It was enough to make him nervous. "You're right," he said finally. "I should have called. We were working late on the Morrison contract, and I lost track of time. I'll make sure to keep you informed in the future." "Thank you. That's all I ask." But I also made a note. 2 months in, and Marcus was already prioritizing Elena over me. The affair hadn't fully started yet, or if it had, it was very new, which meant I still had time to document everything. The next morning, I went to see a private investigator named James Chun. He was recommended by a friend as someone discreet, thorough, and ethical. "I need documentation of my husband's activities," I told him bluntly. "I believe he's having an affair with his assistant, and I want proof before I confront him." "How long have you been married?" 2 months. James raised an eyebrow. "That's very quick for an affair to start." "I know, but I have reason to believe it began before we were married." "Do you want to divorce?" "Eventually. But first, I want to understand the full scope of what's happening. Financial irregularities, business decisions, all of it. My family's money is tied up in his business, and I need to know what I'm dealing with before I make any moves." James studied me for a moment. "You're very calm about this." "I'm very angry, but I'm channeling it productively." He smiled slightly. "All right, Mrs. Hayes. Let's document everything." Over the next 3 months, James provided me with detailed reports. Marcus and Elena were indeed having an affair. They had been since before our wedding. They met at hotels during supposed business lunches. They texted constantly using code words they thought were clever. Elena had a key to Marcus's office and would often stay late after everyone else had gone home. More importantly, James uncovered financial irregularities. Marcus had been siphoning money from the business into personal accounts. He'd taken out loans using false information. He'd forged documents showing assets he didn't have. And he'd been planning to use my inheritance as collateral for a massive loan that would essentially transfer all the risk onto me while keeping all the profit potential for himself. "Your husband is running a sophisticated scheme," James told me during one meeting. "He marries wealthy women, extracts their assets through various means, then discards them. Elena is his partner in this. She helps identify targets, provides cover for his activities, and shares in the profits." "Has he done this before?" "Twice that I can confirm. Both women ended up financially ruined. One filed a police report but couldn't prove anything. The other was too embarrassed to pursue legal action. And they're planning to do the same to me." "Based on the documentation, yes. Elena's been researching the value of your family's estate, your trust fund, your inheritance. They have a timeline. 6 to 8 months to extract maximum value. Then they'll engineer a divorce where you get blamed for the failure of the marriage. Unless I die first." James's expression turned grave. "Mrs. Hayes, if you have reason to believe you're in physical danger." "I don't. Yet. But I know how this story ends if I let it play out naturally. And I'm not going to." "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to document everything, expose everything, and make sure they regret ever thinking I was an easy mark." 4 months into the marriage, Marcus finally asked me about my inheritance. "Victoria, I've been thinking about the business expansion we discussed. I've identified several opportunities, but I need capital to move forward." "What kind of capital?" "About $2 million to start. I was thinking you could use your inheritance as collateral for a business loan. It would be temporary. Once the expansion starts generating revenue, we'd pay off the loan and everything would go back to normal." "That's a significant amount to risk." "It's not risk, it's investment. In our future." "Our future, or your business?" Marcus frowned. "They're the same thing. My business success is your success. We're married. Then why not put the loan in both our names? Why specifically use my inheritance as collateral? Because the banks will give better terms with your family name attached. It's just smart business. Smart would be not risking everything on one loan. What's the backup plan if the expansion fails? It won't fail. I've done the analysis. With Elena? Marcus went very still. What does Elena have to do with this? She's your assistant. Presumably she's involved in the business planning and analysis you're basing this decision on. Of course she is. She's competent and trustworthy. Is she? Because I've been reviewing your company's financials. You've been what? I'm your wife. I have the right to understand where our money might be going. And I've noticed some irregularities in the expense reports. Large payments to consulting firms I can't verify actually exist. Travel expenses that don't align with your actual travel schedule. Bonuses to Elena that seem disproportionate to her role. Marcus's face went from surprise to angry in seconds. You had no right to access those files. Actually, I have every right. My lawyer confirmed it. Spouses have legal rights to review household finances, and since you keep telling me your business is our future, that makes it household finance. Your lawyer? You've been talking to lawyers behind my back. I've been protecting my interests, just like you've been protecting yours. We stared at each other, the mask finally dropping completely. Marcus's charm vanished, replaced by cold calculation. What do you want, Victoria? I want honesty. I want full transparency in the business finances. I want to understand exactly where my money would be going if I agreed to this loan. And I want to know why you think I'm stupid enough to sign over my inheritance without proper legal protection. I never said you were stupid. No, you just treated me like I was. Late nights with Elena, lies about working, asking me to risk everything while you risk nothing. Did you think I wouldn't notice? Or did you think I'd be too desperate to keep you to care? Marcus's expression shifted, trying to reclaim his charm. Victoria, you're misunderstanding everything. I love you. Elena is just my assistant. The business issues are normal growing pains. I'm not trying to take advantage of you. Then prove it. Open the books completely. Let me bring in an independent auditor. Put the loan in both our names with equal liability. If this is really our future together, you should have no problem with full transparency. That's not necessary. You're my wife, you should trust me. Trust is earned, Marcus. And right now, everything I'm seeing suggests you're hiding something. He tried arguing, tried charm, tried guilt. But I held firm. No transparency, no money. Finally, he agreed to let me review everything, believing, I'm sure, that he could fabricate documents or that I wouldn't understand what I was seeing. He was wrong on both counts. 2 weeks later, I sat down with Marcus, Elena, and my lawyer, Thomas Wright. Thomas was a shark in a suit, recommended by James Chun as someone who specialized in financial fraud cases. Thank you for meeting with us, I said pleasantly. I've reviewed the financials Marcus provided, and I have some questions. Elena looked confused. Marcus looked nervous. First, these consulting payments. I contacted the companies listed, and 3 of them don't exist. 2 others have no record of working with Marcus Hayes Enterprises. Can you explain these payments? Marcus glanced at Elena, who jumped in smoothly. Those are probably misclassified expenses. I can pull the correct documentation. I'm sure you can fabricate it, yes, I said calmly. But that won't change the fact that money left your business accounts and went somewhere. Probably personal accounts that you thought I'd never trace. That's a serious accusation, Marcus said coldly. It's a serious crime. Shall I continue? I pulled out more documents. These travel expenses. Flights and hotels that don't correspond to any business trips you actually took. Unless you want to explain the weekend trips to Napa and Tahoe that Elena also happened to take at the same time. Elena's face went white. I don't know what you're implying. I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts. You and Marcus have been having an affair since before our wedding. You've been embezzling from the company together. And you've been planning to defraud me out of my inheritance. You can't prove any of that, Marcus said, but his voice lacked conviction. Actually, I can. I pulled out the investigator's report, complete with photographs, financial records, and documented evidence. I have everything. Every hotel meeting, every stolen kiss in the parking garage, every fraudulent expense report. I have your text messages, your emails, everything. The room went silent. Marcus, Elena whispered. Tell me she's bluffing. I don't bluff, I said. I plan. And I execute. Thomas leaned forward. Mr. Hayes, Miss Cooper, you have two options. Option 1. Mrs. Hayes files criminal charges for fraud and embezzlement, files for divorce citing adultery, and pursues every legal remedy available. Given the evidence, you'd both likely face prison time and definitely face financial ruin. What's option 2? Marcus asked hoarsely. Option 2. You sign the documents we've prepared. Marcus, you sign over 51% of the company to Victoria, giving her majority control. Elena, you resign immediately and sign a non-compete agreement. Both of you sign NDAs ensuring you never speak publicly about your affair or the circumstances of this arrangement. In exchange, Victoria agrees not to file criminal charges. That's insane, Marcus said. I built that company. With my money, I interrupted. Every major client came from my family connections. Every financial crisis was solved with my resources. You built it with my materials, Marcus. I'm just claiming what's mine. And if we refuse? Then I file charges tomorrow morning. I have enough evidence to put you both away for 5 to 7 years. Your reputation will be destroyed. Your business will collapse. Everything you've built will be gone. Elena was crying now. Marcus, do something. But Marcus was already reaching for the pen. He knew when he was beaten. They signed everything. Elena resigned that day, escorted from the building by security. Marcus signed over majority control of the company, effectively making himself my employee. After they left, Thomas looked at me with something like admiration. That was masterfully done, Mrs. Hayes. Are you sure you want to keep him involved in the business at all? For now. I need his technical knowledge until I can replace him with someone competent. After that. I smiled coldly. We'll see. Over the next 6 months, I systematically dismantled everything Marcus and Elena had built. I brought in a new management team. I cleaned up the financial irregularities. I personally contacted every client to reintroduce myself and ensure they understood the company's new direction. Marcus watched helplessly as I undid years of his work. He tried to fight back, tried to undermine me with the staff, tried to turn clients against me. But I'd learned from the best from him. I was patient, strategic, and ruthless when necessary. I also made sure everyone knew the truth. Not the affair. That stayed private per the NDA. But the financial irregularities, the poor business decisions, the risky strategies that had nearly bankrupted the company. I let it leak through carefully placed conversations and accidentally shared documents. Marcus's reputation as a brilliant businessman crumbled. People started seeing him for what he was, a mediocre operator who'd been propped up by other people's money and work. Elena, meanwhile, couldn't find work in our industry. The non-compete agreement I'd forced her to sign was airtight. She'd worked in executive assistance for 10 years. And suddenly she couldn't get a job at any company that did business with anyone we'd ever worked with. Which, thanks to my family connections, was most of the industry. I heard through the grapevine that she'd moved to another state and was working retail. Marcus tried to maintain contact with her, but she blamed him for everything and cut him off completely. 8 months after exposing them, I filed for divorce. The settlement was brutal for Marcus. I kept the house, the business, and most of the assets. He got exactly what he'd come into the marriage with. Nothing. You've destroyed my life, he said at our final meeting. No. I've taken back what you tried to steal. There's a difference. I loved you. You loved my money. Elena loved your potential. Neither of you loved anything real. And you? Did you ever love me? I thought about my previous timeline, about the 8 years I'd spent desperately trying to earn his love and loyalty. About dying alone while he celebrated my death with his mistress. Once, I said honestly, in another life. But that woman is gone. I'm what's left after your betrayal killed her. I'll make you regret this, Marcus threatened. You're welcome to try. But remember, I have all the evidence still. The NDAs prevent you from talking about the affair, but they don't prevent me from filing criminal charges if you violate the agreement. So unless you want to spend the next 5 years in prison, I suggest you disappear quietly. He did. Last I heard, he'd moved across the country and was working middle management at some small company. No more entrepreneur dreams. No more schemes. Just the mediocre existence his mediocre abilities actually qualified him for. As for me, I rebuilt the company into something actually successful. I hired competent people, developed genuine client relationships, created innovative strategies. Everything Marcus had claimed credit for, I did for real. 3 years after the divorce, the company was worth 10 times what it had been under Marcus's management. I'd expanded into new markets, developed new products, built a reputation as one of the most successful young CEOs in the industry. I was also genuinely happy. I'd learned to value my own worth, to trust my instincts, to never again sacrifice myself for someone who didn't value me. One evening, I was at an industry gala when I ran into someone unexpected, Elena. She looked different. Older, harder, dressed in an evening gown that had clearly been purchased secondhand. She was there as someone's date, clinging to a businessman who looked bored by her presence. Victoria, she said when she saw me, her voice cold. Elena, I heard you'd moved away. I came back. Couldn't stay away from the industry forever. How's retail treating you? Her expression turned bitter. You know exactly how it's treating me. You made sure I couldn't work anywhere decent. I made sure you face consequences for fraud and embezzlement. What you do with that is your choice. I could violate the NDA. Tell everyone about how you trapped Marcus, how you schemed and manipulated. And go to prison? Be my guest. The evidence I have will hold up in court, and you'll lose what little you have left. Elena's companion had wandered off, leaving her alone with me. She looked around at the successful people networking and laughing, at the life she'd tried to steal from me, and her shoulders sagged. Was it worth it? She asked quietly. Destroying us like that. Was it worth it trying to destroy me? Because that's what you and Marcus were planning. I just got there first. We would have made you rich. You would have made yourselves rich with my money while leaving me with nothing. Don't rewrite history, Elena. I have the documents. I know exactly what you were planning. I loved him, she said, and for the first time, I heard something genuine in her voice. Maybe you did. But you loved his success more. And when that success turned out to be built on my foundation, you didn't hesitate to help him steal from me. And now I'm successful on my own merit. Marcus is mediocre somewhere else. And you're someone's arm candy at a gala, hoping to find another Mark. We all got exactly what we earned. Elena stared at me for a long moment, then walked away without another word. I watched her go, feeling nothing. No satisfaction, no anger, no pity. Just the cold understanding that some people never learn, never change, never take responsibility. 5 years after my rebirth, I met Daniel Kim at a business conference. He was a venture capitalist, brilliant and self-made, with none of Marcus's artificial charm. We talked about business, about strategy, about the industry. He asked me to dinner. Then another dinner. Then he asked me to be his partner, in business first, then in life. I should tell you. I said when things started getting serious. I was married before. It ended badly. I have trust issues. I should tell you, he replied. I don't care about your past. I care about who you are now. And who you are now is someone I'd be honored to build a future with. We married 2 years later. This time, I walked down the aisle with full knowledge of what I was choosing. No illusions, no desperate hope, just clear-eyed partnership with someone who valued me for myself. My father gave a toast about how proud he was of the woman I'd become. My mother cried happy tears. My friends cheered. And for the first time in 2 lifetimes, I felt genuinely, completely happy. 8 years after my rebirth, the same amount of time I'd spent married to Marcus in my previous life, I was in my office reviewing quarterly reports when my assistant knocked. Mrs. Kim? There's someone here to see you. Says his name is Marcus Hayes. I felt a brief moment of surprise, then nothing. Send him in. Marcus entered looking diminished. The charm was gone, replaced by a resigned weariness. He'd aged poorly, stress and failure showing in every line. Victoria, you look well. I am well. What can I do for you, Marcus? He sat down uninvited. I'm not here to cause trouble. I just wanted to talk. About how wrong I was. About how badly I underestimated you. About how you absolutely destroyed me while making it look effortless. I didn't destroy you. I just stopped propping you up. Everything that collapsed was built on false foundations. You knew, he said suddenly. From the beginning, you knew what Elena and I were planning. The way you moved, the way you documented everything, the way you set the trap. You knew before we even started. I said nothing. How, he pressed. How did you know? Let's just say I'm a quick learner. Marcus laughed bitterly. A quick learner who outplayed me at every turn. Do you know what the worst part is? It's that you were right. About everything. I was mediocre. I was using you. I was planning to discard you. And you saw through it all, and made me pay for it. Did you come here for absolution? Because I'm not offering any. No. I came to warn you. That got my attention. Warn me about what? Elena. She's spiraling. Blames you for everything. I've heard through mutual acquaintances that she's been trying to gather information about you, about your business, about your new husband. I don't know what she's planning, but I wanted you to know. Why would you warn me? Because despite everything, I don't want to see you hurt. And because Elena, she's different now. Harder. More desperate. She's not thinking clearly. After Marcus left, I called James Chun, my investigator. I need you to look into Elena Cooper. Find out what she's been doing, who she's been talking to, if there's any threat I need to be aware of. James called back 3 hours later. Mrs. Kim, we have a problem. Elena had been planning to expose the affair and the circumstances of my divorce from Marcus, violating the NDA in hopes of damaging my reputation. She'd also been spreading false rumors about my business practices, trying to undermine my client relationships. More concerning, she'd been in contact with a tabloid journalist, selling a fabricated story about how I'd seduced Marcus away from his true love, and then destroyed both their lives out of jealousy. She's trying to flip the narrative, James said. Make herself the victim and you the villain. Can she succeed? Depends on how the story is told and who believes it. She has no evidence because the truth is on your side, but she's betting that people want to believe the dramatic story over the boring truth. Then we'll give them the truth first. With evidence. I called an emergency meeting with my PR team and lawyers. We crafted a detailed press release explaining the fraud, the embezzlement, the affair, all with full documentation. We released it before Elena could release her version. The NDAs technically prevented both Marcus and Elena from speaking publicly about the affair, but my lawyers argued that my release was factual reporting of crimes that had been documented but not prosecuted, and that Elena's planned tabloid story constituted a material breach that voided the NDA on my side. It was legally complex, but the court agreed. The story broke nationally. Tech CEO exposes ex-husband's fraud was everywhere. The documentation I provided was irrefutable. Financial experts praised my business acumen in detecting and stopping the scheme. Business schools started using the case as an example of corporate fraud prevention. Elena's counter-narrative died before it ever got traction. The tabloid journalist dropped her story when faced with actual evidence. Elena herself faced renewed scrutiny, with several of Marcus's previous victims coming forward with similar stories. She tried one last time to attack me, posting on social media about how I'd destroyed her life over a mistake. I responded once, publicly. Elena Cooper and Marcus Hayes attempted to defraud me of millions of dollars while conducting an affair throughout my marriage. I documented their crimes, gave them a chance to settle privately, and only went public when Ms. Cooper violated our agreement and attempted to spread lies about me. I didn't destroy her life. She destroyed her own credibility by choosing to be complicit in fraud. Take responsibility for your choices. The post went viral. The public opinion shifted decisively against Elena. She deleted her social media and disappeared from public view entirely. 10 years after my rebirth, I stood in front of a conference room full of business leaders, giving a keynote speech about recognizing and preventing corporate fraud. The signs are often subtle, I told them. Charismatic leaders who discourage transparency, romantic relationships that blur professional boundaries, financial irregularities that seem small at first, but compound over time. The key is documentation, verification, and trusting your instincts when something feels wrong. During the Q&A, someone asked, "How did you have the courage to confront your ex-husband when you knew he was powerful and connected?" "He wasn't powerful," I said simply. "He was a con artist who'd convince people he was powerful." The difference became clear once I stopped believing his performance and started examining his results. Real power comes from actual achievement, not from manipulating others into giving you credit for their work. After the speech, Daniel found me backstage. "You were magnificent," he said, pulling me close. I was honest. "There's a difference." "Is there?" "Because the way you've turned your experience into something that helps others, that seems magnificent to me." I kissed him. This man who'd proven every day that partnership meant equality, that love meant respect, that marriage could be something beautiful when both people were genuine. "Thank you for believing in me. Thank you for being someone worth believing in." That evening, I received a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Victoria? It's Marcus. What do you want?" I wanted to apologize. For everything. For what I did, for what I tried to do, for ever thinking you were someone I could use and discard. This apology is about 10 years too late. I know. But I needed to say it anyway. You were right about everything. I was mediocre. I did use people. And karma caught up with me exactly as you predicted it would. And Elena? She's gone. I don't know where. After the story broke, she just disappeared. I think she finally understood that you weren't going to let her rewrite history. Good. Victoria, can I ask you something? How did you know? From the very beginning, how did you know everything we were planning? I thought about telling him. About the previous timeline, the car accident. Waking up on my wedding day with 8 years of memories about exactly how he'd betray me. But what would be the point? He wouldn't believe it. And even if he did, it wouldn't change anything. Let's just say I'm a very good judge of character, I said. And you were exactly who I thought you were. I deserved everything that happened to me. Yes, you did. But that's not why I'm telling you this story. I'm telling you because you need to understand something. You didn't lose because I was vindictive. You lost because you were incompetent. Everything you achieved was built on other people's work. When those people stopped propping you up, you had nothing left because you never had anything real to begin with. I know that now. Do you? Or are you just saying what you think I want to hear? Silence on the other end of the line. Goodbye, Marcus. Don't call again. I hung up and blocked the number. Daniel had been listening from the doorway. Was that really necessary? Rubbing salt in the wound. That wasn't salt. That was truth. Marcus spent his entire life avoiding accountability, blaming others for his failures, believing he was entitled to success he hadn't earned. If he's finally understanding that his choices had consequences, maybe he'll become a better person. But that's not my responsibility anymore. You're not his wife anymore. You don't have to fix him. I never was his wife. Not really. I was his mark, his resource, his tool. This time around, I made sure he understood that tools can fight back. 15 years after my rebirth, my company went public. The IPO was wildly successful, making me one of the youngest female CEOs to take a company public in our industry's history. At the celebratory dinner, my father stood to make a toast. I remember when Victoria first got married, he said. I thought she'd found a good man, someone ambitious and driven. I was wrong. But what I didn't realize was that Victoria didn't need a good man to be successful. She needed to believe in herself. And once she did, there was no stopping her. My mother added, "You've built something remarkable, Victoria. Not just a company, but a reputation for integrity and excellence. I'm so proud of the woman you've become." Daniel squeezed my hand under the table. Our 3 children, 2 daughters and a son, sat nearby, too young to fully understand the significance of the evening, but picking up on the celebratory atmosphere. This was my life now, built on my own merit, shared with people who genuinely loved me, creating something that would outlast any individual relationship or betrayal. Later that night, as Daniel and I got ready for bed, he asked me something he'd never asked before. Do you ever think about him? About Marcus and what could have been if things had gone differently? No. Because things couldn't have gone differently. Marcus was always going to betray me. Elena was always going to help him. The only variable was whether I'd see it coming. And you did. I did. How? I looked at my husband, at this man who'd proven his love through consistent action rather than empty words, who'd built his own success rather than stealing mine, who treated me as an equal partner rather than a resource to exploit. I learned from experience, I said. The most expensive kind. 20 years after my rebirth, I was invited to speak at my college alma mater's graduation ceremony. Standing at the podium, looking at hundreds of young faces full of hope and ambition, I thought carefully about what I wanted to say. Today, you're graduating with dreams of changing the world, building empires, making your mark. That's wonderful. But I want to talk to you about something that doesn't often get discussed at graduation ceremonies. Failure. Betrayal. The moment when you realize that someone you trusted has been using you. I had their attention now. Early in my career, I married someone who saw me as a resource rather than a person. He, along with his assistant, systematically tried to steal my work, my money, and my future. They almost succeeded. But they made one critical mistake. They underestimated me. The lesson isn't that betrayal happens. We all know that. The lesson is what you do when you realize it's happening. Do you ignore it, hoping it will get better? Do you blame yourself for not seeing it sooner? Or do you document everything, gather evidence, and strike back strategically? I chose the third option. And because I did, I not only stopped them from destroying me, I built something far greater than they ever could have stolen. So my advice to you as you start your careers is this. Trust, but verify. Give people chances, but don't give them unlimited chances. And most importantly, never mistake someone's confidence for competence, or their charm for character. Real success comes from real work, real integrity, real value creation. The people who try to take shortcuts by exploiting others, they eventually run out of victims and have to face their own inadequacy. The people who build something genuine, they create legacies that last. Choose to be the second kind of person. And when you encounter the first kind, and you will, have the courage to stand up to them, the wisdom to document their actions, and the strength to walk away before they can destroy what you've built. The applause was thunderous. After the ceremony, a young woman approached me. Miss Kim, I just wanted to thank you for that speech. I'm currently working for someone who takes credit for my work, and I've been afraid to say anything because I need the job. But you've inspired me to document everything and find a way out. Document thoroughly. I told her. Dates, times, specific contributions. Build a case that's irrefutable. And when you're ready to move on, make sure people know what you actually contributed. Don't let anyone erase your achievements. Did you ever see your ex-husband again? After everything? Once many years ago. He called to apologize. But by then, his apology was irrelevant. He'd lost everything not because I destroyed him, but because without me propping him up, his own inadequacy became visible. That's satisfying. Satisfying, yes. But also sad. He could have been genuinely successful if he'd focused on building real skills instead of exploiting others. Instead, he wasted his life on schemes that eventually collapsed. That's the real tragedy. Not that he lost to me, but that he never learned to be better. 25 years after my rebirth, I received news that Marcus Hayes had died of a heart attack at 56. He'd been working at a mid-level position at a regional firm, his dreams of empire long dead. I felt nothing when I heard. No satisfaction, no sadness, just the faint recognition of someone who'd once been important, but had faded into insignificance. His obituary was brief, mentioning his entrepreneurial spirit, and survived by no one. He'd never remarried, had no children, had apparently spent his final years alone. Elena, I I learned from the same source, had married someone wealthy and was living quietly in another state. She'd reinvented herself completely, with a new name and a carefully constructed backstory that erased her years as Marcus's accomplice. Good for her, I suppose. At least she'd learned to build something new instead of dwelling on what she'd lost. As for me at 56, the age Marcus died, I was thriving. My company had expanded globally. My children were grown and successful in their own rights. Daniel and I were planning our retirement, looking forward to traveling and enjoying the life we'd built together. I'd turned the worst betrayal of my life into the foundation of my greatest success. I'd taken the pain of being exploited and transformed it into the strength to never be exploited again. And most importantly, I'd learned the lesson that would guide the rest of my life. Your worth is determined by what you create, not by who validates you. Your success is measured by your actual achievements, not by the credit others give you. And your legacy is built through genuine work, genuine relationships, and genuine integrity. Marcus and Elena had tried to steal all of that from me. Instead, they taught me to value it more fiercely than I might have otherwise. That evening, as I sat with Daniel on our porch watching the sunset, he asked me a question he'd asked many times before. Any regrets? Just one, I said. I regret that I wasted so much energy being angry at them. I should have simply documented their crimes, exposed them efficiently, and moved on without the emotional investment. Would that have been possible? To remain completely detached? Probably not. The anger was what fueled my thoroughness. If I'd been too detached, I might have missed something. So no real regrets then. No real regrets. We sat in comfortable silence, two people who'd built something genuine together, watching the day end with the satisfaction of knowing we'd lived it well. That was the real victory, not destroying Marcus and Elena, though I'd certainly done that. The real victory was building a life so full and meaningful that their betrayal became just a footnote in my story, rather than the defining chapter they'd intended it to be. They'd tried to make me a victim. Instead, I'd made myself a success. They tried to steal my future. Instead, I'd built a better one than they'd ever imagined. They tried to break me. Instead, I'd broken their schemes and emerged stronger. That was the truth that had sustained me through 25 years of rebuilding. You can't steal from someone who refuses to be a victim. You can't destroy someone who turns your betrayal into their motivation. And you can't win against someone who documents everything and strikes with precision. Marcus and Elena had learned that lesson far too late. By the time they understood who they were really dealing with, I'd already taken everything they'd tried to steal and used it to build an empire they could never have imagined. The story ended not with their destruction, though that had certainly happened, but with my creation. A company that employed thousands. A family that loved genuinely. A legacy built on real achievement rather than stolen credit. Marcus had once told me, "I'll make you proud." In the end, I'd made myself proud. And that was infinitely more valuable than any pride he could have given me. As the sun set completely and Daniel and I headed inside to dinner with our children and grandchildren, I looked back one last time at the horizon. "Goodbye, Marcus," I whispered. "Thank you for teaching me exactly who not to be." And then I closed that chapter forever, and walked into the life I'd built from the ashes of his betrayal. A life that was entirely, authentically, triumphantly mine.